Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something super important for, well, any international student, but especially if you're an Indian F1 student heading over to the US. We're talking about how to handle your money responsibly, legally, for your education abroad. Because look, it's not just about having the funds, right? It's about understanding these sometimes pretty complex rules to avoid trouble and make sure your journey starts smooth and, stay smooth. Okay, let's unpack this.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here, I think, is just how many layers there are. You've got rules from India, rules from the US, strict regulations, declaration needs, tax stuff, both when you leave India and when you actually land in the States. So yeah, our goal today is really to cut through all that noise and give you some clear, practical understanding.
Right, so let's start right at the beginning. Before you even get on that plane in India, we hear this question a lot. Can you, as an Indian F1 student, just carry 100,000 US dollars in cash with you when you leave? Is that okay?
That's a really common question, yeah. And the short answer for leaving India is basically no, not really, especially not that much in cash. So India has this thing called the Liberalized Remittance Scheme, the LRS. And under LRS, residents can actually send a good chunk of money abroad for education, up to $250,000 USD per financial year. But, and this is key, there are very strict rules about carrying physical currency. For Indian rupees, you can only carry more than 25,000 out. That's it. And for foreign currency, like US dollars, if you're carrying more than $5,000 in actual cash, you have to declare it. Or if the total amount you're carrying that includes cash, traveler's checks, even Forex cards, it sometimes goes over $10,000 total, declaration is mandatory. Absolutely mandatory.
Okay, that difference between Indian cash and foreign cash is crucial. So let me get this straight. You can send a lot more money via the bank for education under LRS.
Exactly.
But physically carrying rupees is tiny, only $25,000. And for foreign cash, those $5,000 and $10,000 declaration limits are key. So that $100,000 scenario, how do parents send that legally for their child's education?
Right, that's where LRS really comes into play properly. Your parents can definitely send $100,000, even more, for your education, no problem there, but it has to go through the proper channels. Think authorized dealers banks, registered Forex agents. You declare the purpose education and it's all above board, traceable. You'll need paperwork, of course. The sender's PAN card, this thing called Form A2, which is a declaration, and standard KYC, know your customer documents. And just a little heads up, there's something called tax collected at source, TCS. It's 5% if the total amount sent for education in a financial year goes over 7 lakh. Something to keep in mind.
Okay, so they're tracking it. Purpose, amount, source. It really sounds like trying to just physically carry a huge amount, like $100,000. That's just asking for trouble, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's, well, it's really not advisable. And honestly, it's not safe either. Imagine walking around with that much cash. But beyond the practical side, the legal risks are serious. Like we said, over $5,000 cash. Declare it to Indian Customs. Over $10,000 total value in foreign currency instruments. You must fill out the currency declaration form, the CDF, right there at the airport customs before you fly. Fail to do that, well, customs can seize the money. Simple as that. You could face legal action under FEMA, that's the Foreign Exchange Management Act, it governs all this stuff, and you can bet the income tax department will suddenly be very interested in where that money came from.
Wow.
Yeah. So knowing these exact numbers, these forms, it's critical. You don't want your journey getting derailed before it even starts.
That's a very clear warning. Okay, so that's everything you need to be aware of before you leave India. But like you said, the journey isn't over. You land in the US. Whole new ball game, right? This is where it gets really interesting.
Right.
What happens when you walk up to that CBP officer at the U.S. port of entry?
Right. So now you're entering the U.S. system. And the rules are a bit different. Technically, there's no legal limit on how much currency you can bring into the U.S. You could bring $1 million in cash if you wanted. However, and this is the big one, if you are carrying more than 10,000 US dollars or its equivalent, declaration is mandatory, non-negotiable.
Okay, no limit, but you must declare over $10.
Exactly. And that $10,000 threshold isn't just physical dollar bills. It includes cash, yes, but also traveler's checks. It can even include the balance on your Forex card if it's treated like a stored value card, basically, preloaded money. And of course, any foreign currency you have gets converted to its USD value for this calculation. So euros, rupees, whatever, it all adds up towards that $10,000 trigger.
Wow, okay. So it's the total liquid value you're carrying. That's a really important detail. What's the declaration process actually like when you arrive? What forms are involved?
Usually you'll get a customs declaration form, CBP form 6059B. They often hand them out on the plane, or you get it at a kiosk after landing. You have to state the exact amount you're carrying if it's over $10. Don't guess. You might also need to fill out another form, FinCEN Form 105, that's the report of international transportation of currency or monetary instruments. And definitely be ready for questions. A CBP officer will likely ask you where the money came from and what you plan to use it for.
So honesty and having your story straight are crucial. What if someone tries to, sneak it through? Or if the CBP officer thinks the source sounds a bit fishy?
Yeah, that's where you get into serious trouble. If you don't declare funds over $10,000, or if they suspect the money isn't legitimate, CBP can seize the cash. Right. Imagine landing, ready for school, and your money's gone. It's a nightmare. You could face civil penalties, fines, and in really serious cases, even criminal charges could be filed. You'll absolutely have to prove where the money came from legitimately, like showing education loan papers, bank transfer records from your parents, proof of gifts. And, you might wonder why the U.S. is so strict about declaring, even if there's no limit on bringing money in.
Yeah. Why?
Well, it's mostly about tracking money flow to prevent illegal stuff. Money laundering, funding terrorism, things like that. They need to know large sums are legitimate.
That makes sense. A necessary hassle, I guess. Okay, so that covers the journey itself, leaving India, arriving in the U.S. Let's pivot back to India for a second and look at the tax side of things. According to the Income Tax Act back home, what are the implications of moving this kind of money?
Good question. It largely depends on whose money it is, basically. Where did it originate? So if you funded it yourself from your own savings or earnings in India, you absolutely have to be able to show that this money came from income you've already paid taxes on, or that it's from a proper education loan. If the income tax authorities look into it and can't find a legitimate tax source, they might deem it undisclosed income. And the penalties for that can be pretty harsh. There's Section 69A for unexplained money, and Section 271 AAB, which allows penalties anywhere from 30% right up to 90% of the amount.
90%. Wow. Okay, so that paper trail proving the source is everything if it's your own money. What about the more common scenario where parents are funding their child's education?
Right, that's very common. In that case, it's generally treated as a gift specifically for education. And the good news is, gifts for education from specified relatives, like parents, are usually tax-exempt for the recipient under Section 562 of the Income Tax Act.
Okay, that's a relief for many students.
It is. However, a couple of important points. First, the parents still need to make sure they report this gift correctly in their own income tax return, their ITR. It's about transparency. And second, remember that 5% TCS we talked about earlier, tax collected at source. That still applies if the total amount they remit for education crosses that 7 lakh threshold in the financial year, even if it's a gift.
Got it. So even gifts need reporting, and TCS might still bite. It really highlights why sticking to legitimate traceable methods is so important. Which brings us to what we often call the safe routes for sending larger sums. It's like you want the clearly marked, well-lit path, right? Not the dark alley.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. The safe routes are things like a direct bank wire transfer, a SWIFT transfer from an Indian bank account to your U.S. bank account. That's highly recommended, very clean. Loading up a Forex card through an authorized dealer in India is another good, traceable option. And of course, getting a formal education loan from an institution recognized by the Reserve Bank of India. That creates an undeniable paper trail. These methods give you peace of mind.
Okay, fantastic. So we've covered the rules departing India, arriving in the U.S., the tax angles, and the safe ways to move funds. Let's try and boil this all down now into really practical, actionable advice for you, the F1 student getting ready for this huge step. What's the bottom line recommendation?
Okay, let's break it down by risk level, thinking about different amounts. Carrying a small amount of cash for immediate needs when you land, say $1,000 to $3,000 US dollars. That's low risk. We definitely recommend that for taxis, food, initial setup. Easy to manage, easy to explain if asked.
Makes sense.
Now, carrying that hypothetical $100,000 in cash, as we discussed, that is extremely high risk. Just don't do it. Absolutely not recommended. You're asking for trouble with customs in both countries, potential seizure, tax issues. It's just not worth it.
Right. Definitely avoid.
Transferring $100,000 or any large sum needed for tuition and living expenses via a bank wire transfer, that's low risk. It's legal, fully traceable, the recommended path for substantial amounts.
It's a well-lit path.
Precisely. And finally, using a Forex card. Loading it with, say, $5,000 to $10,000 for ongoing expenses once you arrive. That's generally a medium risk, but a very practical and good option for students. Just be aware it might count towards that $10,000 declaration threshold when you enter the U.S.
That's a really helpful breakdown.
Yeah.
So summarizing the crucial final advice for you listening. 1, never, ever carry more than the equivalent of $10,000 total, cash, cards, checks combined without declaring it fully at customs, both leaving India, if applicable, and especially arriving in the U.S., the consequences are just too severe. 2. Avoid carrying large amounts of physical cash unless there's an absolutely unavoidable, legitimate reason. Bank transfers and Forex cards are your friends. 3. This is so important always. Always keep documentary proof of where your funds came from. Loan sanction letters, bank statements showing transfers, gift declarations, tuition fee invoices. Keep copies safe. This is your evidence if questions arise. And finally, 4. If you're dealing with large sums, or if any of this still feels confusing, please talk to a professional. Consult your chartered accountant or a qualified tax advisor in India before you travel. Get personalized advice. It can save you a world of headache later.
Absolutely. And, if we zoom out a bit, this isn't just about following rules to avoid penalties. It's really about setting yourself up for success right from day one in a new country. Being informed, being compliant, being transparent with your finances. It builds a foundation of trust and allows you to focus on what you're really there for your education. It genuinely makes a difference to start off on the right foot.
Well said. Understanding these currency rules, the declaration needs, the tax implications, and knowing the safe transfer methods, it's just non-negotiable homework for F1 students. Do it right, and you'll have much more peace of mind. All the best as you embark on your studies. It's an exciting time.
Indeed. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Beyond just following the regulations, how does really embracing this idea of transparency and thorough preparation in your financial matters actually empower you? How can it help you navigate all the other challenges and opportunities of your international education journey more competently? Something to think about. We will meet again soon with another important subject in our next meeting.
Until then, keep learning and stay well informed.